Hey everybody, we're back. It's Friday. We are waiting to see whether these payroll protection program loans actually get processed today, whether the banks are going to be accepting applications. It's about 10:15 in the morning. So, been a lot of revisions to this tool, and there's a lot of people are downloading it. So, we're going to try to touch base with those folks. There's also a place if you're downloading the tool today. If you want future updates, you can put in your email address, and we'll send those updates to you as they come out. Now, I would preface everything by saying this tool was originally built based on the text of the legislation as soon as it came available. And it's before any guidance came out from SBA, it's before anybody else had a chance to proof it. So it's undergone some tweaks here and there. A couple of formulas needed to be updated. But the biggest issues, a couple of things are the SBA saying most people are going to be doing calendar year 2019. So rather than just stick to the 12 months prior to the loan, which you can do, it's written that way until SBA says we can't. But SBA is saying most people are going to do it, which I interpret as some people can use the 12 months prior to the loan, or it's just a lot easier for most folks to pull their 2019 payroll tax returns and figure this out. So the biggest issue, the thing that I wanted to talk about today, we'll get into a separate video on the loan forgiveness once we get more stuff out of that, because I think the FTE question, because it's so complex, I think we're going to have to get some guidance because most people aren't going to be able to figure that out, and you're going to see all these novel approaches. So I think SBA is going to come out with one particular formula, and we'll probably change the whole back half of this model after that comes out. But for now, in terms of estimation, it's important. But there's been a change in my understanding of reading the law, but I think there's also a lot of confusion, and it has to do with this part of employment taxes, so payroll and withholding taxes between 215.20 and 630.20. This is a new row. We inserted this. I don't think you're going to have anything in here, and the reason I say that is because the way I read the code, the payroll costs and then the exclusions all pertain to amounts that are already included up here. So for instance, if you're paying somebody more than $100,000 per year and you'd already recorded that amount in salaries and wages, you have to back it back out. If you have salaries and wages up here paid to somebody whose principal place of residence is outside the U.S., you have to back it back out. And then if you have payroll and withholding taxes between February 15th 2020 and June 30th, 2020, up here, you have to back it up. Nobody has that. Nobody's going to have that. So why is it there? It's incredibly confusing. I have no idea why they worded it this way, but I think we know what it means. And what it means has nothing to do with this section up here. It has nothing to do with calculating your maximum loan amount. It has to do with how much of your spending is going to be forgiven. And it's big. It's a big change. So we put this new row in here for FICA and railroad retirement and income taxes withheld during the period, employee and the employer share. And this will be withheld during this time period from the time you get the loan until the ensuing 8 weeks. Now let me go through the code real quick and just kind of show you where my basis for putting this together is. So if you look at section 1102, you can get this from Library of Congress website. Look at section 1102. We have all these definitions, right? So we get a couple of definitions that really matter are covered period. So the covered period, and this is important, the covered period for section 1102 is 2020, 2/15/2020 to June 30th, 2020. Right? And then the other big definition in 1102, which 1102 is where you calculate your loan amount. So 1102 is kind of like the top half of our spreadsheet, is this payroll cost. So payroll cost is defined here. And so we have all these things, right? Salaries, wages, all the stuff you've seen in the spreadsheet. And then we get down to the stuff that I'm still not entirely certain on, sole proprietor, independent contractors. And then it doesn't include, so you have to exclude the compensation of individual employees over 100,000, makes sense. Then we get to taxes imposed or withheld under 21, 22, or 24. So 21 is FICA, 22 is railroad retirement, and 24 is income tax withholding. So any of those things imposed or withheld you have to exclude. and any compensation of any employee's principal place of residence outside the U.S. And then you get into sick leave stuff, right? So this is stuff that is excluded during this covered period. So when is this covered period? Well, we go back up, and the covered period is February 20th to June 30th. So you're not going to have those amounts in your calculation. So they don't apply to calculating how much the maximum loan is, in my opinion. So then, where do they come into play? Well, if you go to section 1106, this is where we get into, if I can find it, this is where we get into loan forgiveness. So definitions for loan forgiveness. Covered loan, covered mortgage obligation, covered period. This is the important one. What's the covered period in 1106? It's the 8-week period after you get the loan, right? And then get into more details down here, and it says the term payroll costs has the meaning given to it, and yada, 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 or 1102. So this is just referring to this new language in 1102. So payroll cost equals 1102. And so your forgiveness is equal to your payroll costs. Now you got to go back to payroll costs. So the payroll costs up in 1102 talk about those amounts that are withheld. But this is a different covered period. So it's the amounts that are withheld during the 8 weeks following the loan origination. So what does that mean in practical purposes? Well, it means that when you start calculating how much you've paid payroll costs, and we may re-engineer this just to make it simpler, but payroll costs and then mortgage obligations, all that stuff. And then we've kind of explicitly adjusted out of payroll costs because we're kind of looking at this as what did the employer pay? If they're looking back at that 8-week period, what was my gross payroll, and including my medical benefits? And then we're going to back out the amounts for highly compensated folks. And then you're going to have to back out the amounts of Social Security and on the employer and the employee side, and the amount of income tax withholding that came out during those 8 weeks. And that is not going to be eligible for forgiveness. So that's kind of a big change in my understanding of how this is written. Now, a couple of things I will say. The reason I think I'm right in excluding this from the like not worrying about this up here so much, because it's specifically 215.20 to 630.20. SBA released guidance last night, and this is their guidance. And it says federal employment taxes imposed or withheld between February 15th, 2020 and June 30th, 2020. So they are referencing the covered period as it's defined in section 1102. So I think SBA gets it. Now, U.S. Chamber of Commerce was having people back out all of their withholding and FICA for the whole 2019 period they're looking back on. And I got this morning from somebody who asked for some help filling out small business, trying to fill out their application. This is from ADP, and ADP is doing the same thing. ADP is taking earnings, subtracting taxes, adding back state and local taxes, subtracting Social Security and Medicare, and then adding back retirement benefits. So this is a small employer, about 5 employees, but I think ADP is doing this wrong, and the way that they're doing it is going to mean a $12,000 difference in the maximum loan amount for this small business. So just beware of who you're getting this information from. And I wouldn't take it for granted that everybody knows what they're doing. There's still a lot of question marks on this. So give us a call if we can help.